Hello there, my name is Anna Nichenko, and now we will unveil the top news of recent days. Here we have an example of the consequences of the war started by Russia against Ukraine. After all, until 2022, there was no such problem. Currently, it is not known which mine was detonated, but it can be one of those that was washed away by the water when the Kakhovka Dam was blown up. Yes, every destructive action of the Russians makes the situation in the region even worse. After the detonation of the dam, the Ukrainian authorities warned that the water was destroying Russian ammunition depots with anti-tank and anti-personnel mines, and the entire region had now become dangerous. Today, a civilian ship under the flag of Panama was damaged. The bulker was on its way to one of the Danube ports to be loaded with grain. As a result of the explosion, the ship lost speed and control, and the fire began on the upper deck. To avoid flooding, the captain anchored the ship aground. Boats of the Coast Guard, of the State Police Service and the Search and Rescue Service immediately assisted the crew and brought medics on board. One wounded sailor was treated on the spot. The other was taken to the nearest hospital. Now Ukrainian tugs are helping to the vessel for removal from the ground and delivery to the port. Security in the Black Sea is an obvious and dangerous problem that must be solved. And it affects not only neighboring countries, but the whole world. Volodymyr Zelensky spoke about this last week.
An important international conversation took place with the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres. The focus was on security, particularly maritime security in the Black Sea, including the expansion of this security and therefore the strengthening of global food security, and the approach of the moment when we can restore security to all our people, when we can end the Russian aggression, and it in a fair manner.
I'll remind you, several similar incidents have been reported in the Black Sea recently, including a Turkish cargo ship striking a mine off the Romanian coast and a Russian missile strike on a ship entering the Odessa region's port. These events point towards an unsettling trend. As the situation continues to evolve, the world watches with bated breath, hoping for an end to these maritime mine encounters and a return to safer seafaring. The European Union is preparing an alternative aid scheme for Ukraine worth 20 billion, writes the Financial Times. The media reports that the European Union is looking for ways to circumvent Hungarian Prime Minister Orban's veto on economic aid to Ukraine and is preparing a scheme for 20 billion euros, which will not require unanimous approval by all countries of the Union. Let me remind you that the European Union wants to include economic assistance to Ukraine in the amount of 50 billion euros in its budget plan for the next 4 years. But Hungarian leader Viktor Orban blocked this decision at the December European Union summit. The European Union now intends to return to this issue at an extraordinary summit on February 1st. The proposal is that some European Union countries will provide financial guarantees under which the European Union will receive 20 billion euros in loan for Ukraine on the financial markets. Let me remind you that European Union Foreign Minister Josep Borrell, in an interview with The Guardian, called for increased support for Ukraine in the confrontation with Russia. According to Borrell, if Europe doesn't change course quickly, if it doesn't mobilize all its capabilities, it will allow Putin to win the war in Ukraine. According to Borrell, a possible Russian victory in Ukraine would threaten the very existence of the European Union. He stressed that Russia has always been an empire and not a nation-state, and therefore poses a threat to its neighbors and ultimately to Europe.
Putin cannot be satisfied with a piece of Ukraine and to let the rest of Ukraine belong to the European Union. But he cannot be satisfied with a limited territorial victory. He will not give up the war, especially not before the American election, which may present him with a much more favorable scenario. So we must prepare for a conflict of high intensity for a long time. Joseph Borrell, High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policy, in an interview with The Guardian.
It may seem to you that we Ukrainians are only asking for something, either money or ammunition, but believe me, all these requests are not from a good life. This is a question of the survival of the nation, the country. No matter how Russian propaganda tries to convince you, Ukrainians and Russians are two very different peoples. And we are grateful for every delivery. In particular, the announced US supply for a new $250 million military aid package for Ukraine. The last one this year. The package includes additional projectiles for the NASAMS and HIMARS systems, 155mm and 105mm artillery rounds, Stinger anti-aircraft missiles, TOW anti-tank missiles, and Javelin and 84 anti-tank systems. Over 15 million cartridges for small arm demolition ammunition for removing obstacles. Spare parts, medical equipment, technical maintenance, and other equipment were mentioned in the list of weapons supplied as well. The Foreign Affairs Committee of the Turkish Grand National Assembly ratified the protocol on Sweden's accession to NATO. Well, now NATO will be even closer to Russia. The Baltic Sea will soon become an international NATO sea, and St. Petersburg and Kaliningrad will become even more militarized in order to exclude a possible attack by alliance. After all, according to Putin theory, NATO is just waiting to attack Russia. After all, it was the reason for the start of the war. Or what? Goals change so quickly that nobody can't even keep track. Either the demilitarization of Ukraine or a prevention strike, or NATO's desire to get closer to Russia. But it already happened. The border with NATO has already increased more than 1,000 kilometers after Finland's accession. Yes, now Russia can make hybrid attacks from its territory. Previously, for this, it was necessary to use Belarus on the border with Poland or Lithuania. Now they can storm the border crossing between Russia and Finland on their own. Well, not by troops, but by migrants from Asia. As before on the Polish-Belarusian border, they are brought up in organized groups, and Russian border guards carefully give them bicycles. The Finns even had to close the border crossing by a while. They wanted to resume work on December 14th. But the flow of migrants didn't go away, and the border had to be closed again. As the insider writes, the influx of refugees is happening not just with the knowledge, but under the complete control of Russian security forces. There is also confirmation that the crisis on the Finnish border is organized by the same structures as the crisis on the border of Poland and Belarus. And this once again confirms that Russia will not stop at the war in Ukraine. And that is why any discussion in any partner country about the need to help Ukraine requires an analysis and assessments of the basic theories, which are absolute after almost 2 years of war. After all, Putin started a full-scale bloody war with a large number of victims not in order to make peace, without achieving his destructive goals.
The main theses, which can already be actively discussed, are we, residents of any European country, ready to fight in a big war if Russia, Putin are not defeated now, but on the contrary having gained a great practical experience of genocidal war and guaranteed impunity, keep expanding their authoritarian lands. Mikhailo Podolyak, advisor to the head of the Office of the President of Ukraine on social network X, formerly Twitter.
Russia and Putin wouldn't ruin their own reputation and bury 500,000 of their own citizens in the ground or put them in wheelchairs for the sake of a small fragment of someone else's territory. They need everything at once, and necessarily with a huge number of murders, deportations, and exiles. That concludes today's video. Thank you for watching. Stay updated, comment, like, and subscribe to our UATV English channel for more news from Ukraine. Your support really matters. See you.